Welcome to Essential Dialogues. Today, we're going to be diving deep into Ethiopia's financial system.
Okay.
Specifically, what's trending in terms of stability and risk. Our main source is going to be the November 2024 Financial Stability Report from the National Bank of Ethiopia.
Right.
Um, this report's kind of like a crystal ball for
Mhm.
anyone interested in tech business or finance,
Yeah.
especially if you're like an investor
hmm
looking for the next big thing. So,
What's fascinating is this report comes at a crucial time for Ethiopia's economy.
okay.
They're going through major changes,
Mm-hmm.
and their financial landscape is evolving rapidly.
Okay, so let's break this down for our listeners.
Yeah.
The report starts by, giving us a glimpse of the global economic scene.
Right.
What's the big picture?
The report says the global economy is expected to grow,
Uh-huh.
but not by a huge amount. Advanced economies are doing slightly better than they did in 2023.
Okay.
Inflation is going down globally,
Yeah,
but it's still pretty high in sub-Saharan Africa.
that's interesting. So where does Ethiopia fit into all of this?
Well, that's where things get exciting. Ethiopia's economy is projected to grow much faster
Yeah.
than the global average, like even faster than other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Their projected growth is over 8% for 2024-2025.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
But hasn't inflation been a big issue in Ethiopia?
Yes. But the report predicts it will drop significantly over the next 2 years. One of the main reasons for this positive outlook
Okay.
is the recent reform of their foreign exchange system.
So what's been happening since they changed their foreign exchange system?
We're seeing some promising results.
Uh-huh.
For instance, the official exchange rate and the black market rate are getting closer.
Hmm.
Exports and remittances are increasing, and foreign exchange reserves are going up. The government is actively trying to stabilize the economy
Okay.
while minimizing any negative impacts on the people.
That sounds like a tough balancing act.
Mm.
Are there any potential risks we should be aware of?
Of course, no economic outlook is without risks. Domestic security challenges and global commodity price swings could pose problems.
Let's talk about the banking sector. The report seems to emphasize its importance in Ethiopia.
Absolutely. The banking sector is the backbone of Ethiopia's financial system,
Okay.
so its stability is crucial.
So tell me, what's the banking sector in Ethiopia like?
The state-owned Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, or CBE,
Hmm.
is still a major player, but its market share has been shrinking. This suggests a move towards a more diverse banking landscape,
Okay.
which is a positive sign.
The report also mentions something called credit concentration. Can you explain that for our listeners?
Credit concentration means that a large portion of loans are going to a small number of borrowers.
Okay.
In Ethiopia's case, this is especially true when you consider loans to large state-owned enterprises. However, within the private sector,
Mhm.
lending is more spread out among different borrowers, which reduces risk.
That makes sense. So how healthy are these banks financially?
The report indicates that the banking sector is in good shape. They have a strong capital adequacy ratio, which
Mm.
basically means they have a good cushion to absorb potential losses. They are also managing liquidity risk,
Mm-hmm.
though they could be vulnerable if large depositors suddenly withdraw their money.
What about profitability? Are banks making money?
Profitability seems to be sufficient for now, but it could be affected by the rising interest rate environment. Banks have to pay higher interest on deposits,
Okay.
while some of their assets might be stuck at lower interest rates.
That sounds like a tricky situation. Did the recent depreciation of the Ethiopian currency, the birr, impact the banks?
Yes, but the report says the banking sector demonstrated resilience during that period.
That's reassuring. Now, one thing that always comes up in our discussions about finance is cybersecurity. Is that a concern for Ethiopian banks?
Absolutely. Operational risk, including things like fraud and cyber attacks, is a growing concern.
So what's being done to address this issue?
The National Bank of Ethiopia is taking it seriously. They've implemented new directives to improve things like corporate governance, credit concentration management, liquidity risk management,
Hmm.
and of course, cybersecurity.
So it sounds like they're trying to build a financial system that's not just robust, but also secure in this digital age.
Exactly. It's about adapting to the new realities of financial transactions.
The report also touches on other financial sectors beyond banking. What can you tell us about those?
One interesting area is microfinance.
Uh-huh.
It's been growing rapidly and is considered stable, but it heavily relies on commercial banks for funding.
That's interesting. So if the banks were to face difficulties,
Mhm.
the microfinance sector could be in trouble too.
That's a possibility. The report also talks about the capital goods finance business sector,
Yeah, okay.
which provides loans for machinery and equipment. They've seen significant growth in lending, but profitability has been a challenge.
So even though these sectors may not be systematically important right now,
Hmm.
they still play a vital role in the financial system,
Mm,
especially for those who rely on them.
precisely. Their social impact is undeniable. They serve a large number of customers
Mhm.
and are crucial for financial inclusion.
Welcome back to Essential Dialogues.
Cool.
In part one, we got the big picture, Ethiopia's economy,
Right.
and we zoomed in on their banking sector. Now let's take a closer look at some other parts of their financial system.
Okay.
Using that November 2024 financial stability report from the National Bank of Ethiopia as our guide. I'm especially curious about microfinance.
Mm.
You mentioned it briefly in part one, and I know it plays a huge role in helping individuals and communities,
Mhm.
particularly in developing economies.
You're absolutely right. The report highlights how much the microfinance sector has grown in Ethiopia.
Guys.
Their total assets have jumped by an incredible 21.6%, reaching 60.1 billion birr. That's a lot of money being put to work.
So more people in Ethiopia are getting access to financial tools,
Yeah,
potentially lifting themselves out of poverty.
exactly. Deposits have also grown significantly by 29.2%, reaching 31.4 billion birr. And here's another encouraging sign. Asset quality has improved. This means microfinance institutions are doing a good job of managing their loans. The non-performing loan ratio, which is a measure of risky loans, has dropped to 3.6%. That's well below the National Bank of Ethiopia's requirement of less than 5%.
That's good to hear. It sounds like these microfinance institutions are having a real positive impact. But you also mentioned earlier that they rely heavily on banks for funding.
Yes, that's a key point. The report highlights this interconnectedness.
Uh-huh.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword. While it allows the microfinance sector to thrive, it also makes them vulnerable if something were to happen in the banking sector.
It's a reminder that everything in the financial system is connected. So if one part weakens, it can have ripple effects on other parts.
Right.
What about the capital goods finance business sector? What do the reports say about them?
They've seen their loans surge by 35.3%,
Okay.
reaching over 3.7 billion birr. But the report also flags some potential risks.
Mm-hmm.
They too depend heavily on banks for funding, making them susceptible to any problems in the banking sector.
So any instability in the banking sector could really shake things up.
Yes. And their lack of diversified funding sources is also a concern. They're putting a lot of eggs in one basket, so
Right.
to speak. The report specifically points out that most of their loans are concentrated in the manufacturing sector. If that sector were to face problems, it could create a ripple effect on capital goods financing.
It's a reminder that spreading risk is crucial for stability. Now let's move on to the insurance sector. I know it's not as big as banking,
Right.
but it's still an important part of a healthy financial system.
Absolutely. The insurance sector in Ethiopia is still developing,
Okay.
but it has been steadily growing. The report suggests it's pretty resilient, but also points to some areas that need attention.
Like what?
Earnings and concentration risks are two key concerns. The report hints that the National Bank of Ethiopia might need to step in with some regulatory action to address these issues.
It's interesting how the report keeps emphasizing the need for managing risk and having strong regulations across all these sectors. It really shows how proactive they're being about keeping the entire financial system stable.
I agree. They're not just focusing on individual sectors.
Wow.
They're looking at the big picture
Mm.
and how everything fits together.
Speaking of being proactive,
Mm.
the report dedicates quite a bit of space to the changes the National Bank of Ethiopia is making
Mm-hmm.
to regulations in the banking sector.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they're trying to reinforce the foundation of the whole system.
That's right. They're taking steps to improve things like corporate governance, credit risk management, and overall banking practices.
Yeah.
They're learning from international best practices like the Basel framework and trying to apply those lessons to address weaknesses they've observed in the Ethiopian banking sector.
It sounds like they're doing their homework. What are some examples of these changes?
Well, for instance, they're emphasizing the need for independent directors on bank boards. This means having people on the board who aren't directly involved in the bank's day-to-day operations. It brings an extra layer of objectivity and transparency.
That makes sense. It's like having an outside perspective to keep things in check.
Exactly. They're also raising the bar for who can be a bank director or manager.
Oh.
They want to ensure that people with the right expertise and ethical standards are leading these institutions.
So they're really focusing on improving governance in the banking sector. It's like making sure the people at the helm are qualified and trustworthy.
Exactly. It's all about building trust and confidence in the system.
The report also mentions something about changes to credit risk management. Can you explain what that's about?
Sure. They've revised their guidelines on large exposures.
Okay.
This is all about mitigating the risks that come with concentrated lending. They're setting limits on how much a bank can lend to a single borrower or a group of connected borrowers.
So they're trying to prevent situations where one big loan going bad could bring down the whole bank.
Exactly. They're also tightening up rules on how banks classify assets and set aside money for potential loan losses.
Hmm.
This will make banks more transparent and cautious when assessing the risk of their loans.
It's like putting in place safety nets to make the system more resilient. What about those related party transactions we talked about earlier? Are they doing anything to address potential conflicts of interest there?
Yes. They've revised their directive on related party transactions to prevent banks from giving preferential treatment to their own affiliates or insiders.
Right.
They're setting clear limits and prohibiting transactions that offer special terms. This is all about promoting fairness and transparency.
It's like leveling the playing field
Mhm.
and ensuring that everyone plays by the same rules. It's good to know that the National Bank of Ethiopia is taking these steps to strengthen the banking sector. But what about the broader financial system? What else are they doing to improve things?
The report highlights their efforts to develop a robust financial system infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's the behind-the-scenes stuff that most people don't think about, but it's crucial for making sure everything runs smoothly.
So what are we talking about here? Give me an example.
Think about payment systems.
Hmm.
These are the networks that allow us to transfer money, make payments, and conduct financial transactions. The report emphasizes the importance of having efficient and interconnected payment channels. They're focusing on improving the speed, security, and reliability of these systems.
It's like making sure the pipes that carry the money are working properly.
Exactly. They're also looking at ways to improve risk measurement, especially in the world of digital financial technologies, which is
Mhm.
changing rapidly.
So with all this talk about digital transactions and fintech,
Yeah.
are they also addressing the issue of cybersecurity in this broader financial system infrastructure?
Yes, they're definitely aware of the risks associated with the digitalization of finance. They're working on policies to mitigate operational and technological threats.
So they're not just building a more robust financial system, they're also making sure it's secure in the digital age.
That's right. They're taking a holistic approach, recognizing that a stable financial system is not just about numbers and regulations.
It's about creating an environment where people and businesses can thrive.
Exactly.
Now, another topic the report touched on is financial inclusion and consumer protection. How are those being addressed in Ethiopia?
They're working to expand access to financial services for everyone,
Okay.
including people in rural areas and those who have traditionally been excluded from the formal financial system.
So are they just building more banks and branches?
That's part of it,
Yeah.
but they're also promoting digital financial services,
Yeah.
like mobile money platforms,
Uh-huh.
which can reach people in remote areas.
That's really interesting. It's about bringing financial services to the people rather than expecting people to travel long distances to access them.
Exactly. And it's not just about providing access. They're also putting measures in place to protect consumers
Ah.
and ensure they're treated fairly.
Yeah. So it's about creating a financial system that's inclusive and safe for everyone to participate in. What about credit markets? I know access to credit is crucial for businesses and individuals to grow.
The report highlights their efforts to improve what's called credit market infrastructure.
What does that even mean? It sounds complicated.
It's all about creating a more efficient and transparent system for lending and borrowing money.
Okay.
A key component of this is a robust credit reporting system.
So this would allow lenders to check someone's credit history before giving them a loan.
Exactly. It helps lenders assess creditworthiness accurately, which reduces risk. They're also working on developing collateral registries, which would make it easier for people to use their assets, like land or buildings,
Yeah.
as security for loans.
It's like creating a more organized and reliable system for managing credit, which benefits both lenders and borrowers.
Precisely. It's all part of their efforts to create a more stable and inclusive financial system.
Welcome back to Essential Dialogues. We've spent the last two parts of this episode taking a deep dive into Ethiopia's financial system. We've learned about their economic outlook, the health of their banking sector, and some of the reforms and developments happening in other areas, like microfinance and insurance. Now, in this final part,
Okay.
um, I'm curious about what the future holds for Ethiopia's financial system. What opportunities and challenges are on the horizon?
Well, I think we're seeing Ethiopia's financial system at a turning point.
Okay.
There's a mix of factors that could really reshape things. The government is pushing for economic reforms.
Hmm.
They've introduced new financial tools like the Ethiopian Securities Exchange, and digital financial technologies are becoming more common. All of this creates a space for innovation and growth.
So it sounds like there's a lot of potential for positive change. What specific opportunities do you see for businesses, investors, and tech enthusiasts?
One big opportunity is the potential to leapfrog over traditional financial models and create new, more inclusive systems. Imagine a financial system that's built from the ground up
Uh-huh.
to serve the unique needs of the Ethiopian people and their economy.
That's an exciting thought. But as with any change, there must be challenges too. What are some of the potential roadblocks Ethiopia might face?
The report highlighted a few key areas that need attention.
Okay.
One is credit concentration, especially within state-owned enterprises.
Huh?
They need to be careful about managing that risk.
So too much lending concentrated in a small group could be a problem.
Exactly. Another issue is the vulnerability of certain sectors to liquidity risks.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about how microfinance institutions rely heavily on banks for funding.
Right.
If banks run into trouble, it could create problems for those who depend on microfinance.
It highlights the interconnected nature of the financial system. Any weakness in one area can potentially spill over into others.
That's right. And we can't forget about cybersecurity. The threat of operational risks, including things like cyber attacks and fraud,
Mm-hmm.
is constantly evolving. Ethiopia needs to be proactive about protecting its financial system from those threats.
So it's a delicate balancing act. They need to embrace innovation and encourage growth,
Yeah.
but also ensure stability and security. What role does the National Bank of Ethiopia play in all of this?
They have a crucial role. The report showed us how committed they are
Right.
to strengthening regulations, improving corporate governance in banks, and promoting responsible risk management. Their actions will be key to navigating the challenges and helping Ethiopia's financial system reach its full potential.
It sounds like they're trying to build a solid foundation for a thriving financial system. Now, one area I'm particularly interested in is technology and innovation. It seems like Ethiopia has the potential to become a hub for fintech development.
I agree. They have a growing economy, a young population that's comfortable with technology, and a supportive regulatory environment. It's a recipe for fintech innovation. We're already seeing mobile money platforms, digital lending solutions, and other technologies that could change the way financial services work in Ethiopia.
I'm curious about the potential impact of fintech on financial inclusion. Could it help reach those who have been excluded from traditional financial services?
Absolutely. Fintech solutions have the power to overcome barriers to access. Imagine being able to get a loan or open a savings account using your mobile phone, even if you live in a remote village.
Right.
Fintech can also make the financial system more efficient and transparent, reducing costs and improving access to information.
So it sounds like fintech could be a game changer for Ethiopia. But are there any risks associated with these new technologies?
Of course, like any powerful tool, fintech needs to be used responsibly. We have to think about cybersecurity threats, data privacy concerns, and the potential for regulatory loopholes. It's important for regulators, innovators, and consumers to work together to create a fintech ecosystem that is both dynamic and safe.
It's about finding that sweet spot between innovation and security. We've covered so much ground in our deep dive into Ethiopia's financial system. We've looked at their strengths, their vulnerabilities, and their enormous potential. What are your final thoughts for our listeners?
I think the key takeaway is that Ethiopia's financial system is at a fascinating moment in its evolution. There are challenges ahead, but also immense opportunities for anyone interested in understanding emerging markets, the role of technology in finance, and the pursuit of financial inclusion. Ethiopia is a story worth watching closely.
And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive into Ethiopia's financial system. We hope this conversation has provided valuable insights and sparked your curiosity about this vibrant and evolving market. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Essential Dialogues podcast for more in-depth discussions on topics that matter. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those dialogues flowing.